Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is brought to you in part by our Patreon page at patreon.com/Gear Network. That's Patreon, patreon.com/Gear Network, GERE Network. While you don't have to do this, if you would like to support us, that is a very easy way to do it. For as little as $2 a month, you can get this podcast as well as all others completely commercial free, as well as exclusive content like Patreon-only podcasts, videocasts, and blogs that are not regularly available on GearNetwork.com or any RSS feed. Your support helps us continue to keep up with upgrades to software, purchase professional equipment, and assist us with production costs. Again, patreon.com/Gear Network. Do it right now for as little as $2 a month.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
You're listening to the Sabrecast, brought to you by Better Live Than Dead. And now your hosts, Brayton Wilson and Ryan Wolfe.
And with that, we welcome you to the Sabrecast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This is Season 2, Episode 13. The title, we'll figure it out during the podcast because I don't really think we have much of a podcast for you today. I'll tell you why in just a second. First off, you can hear us on BetterLiveThanDead.com, GearNetwork.com, Apple Podcasts, Bullhorn, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, the Radio.com app, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. I am Ryan Wolfe at WolfeBLTD, joined on the IndyCar Media Hotline by Brayton Wilson at BJ Wilson WGR. Brayton, how are you doing on this lovely Saturday afternoon?
It's beautiful outside, Ryan. It's a great sports jersey Saturday, and just, enjoying another beautiful weekend, the first summer weekend here in Western New York.
As of 5:43 p.m. Eastern Time on the 20th of June, it will officially be summer, so happy summer preemptively to everybody out there. The longest day sunwise of the year. I always tell myself before I get into hockey, I always look at the first day of winter and say it's nowhere but up from here to try to keep myself from falling into the winter doldrums. Now today, you just got to enjoy summer because it is officially here in just a few hours.
It's gonna be beautiful.
If you hear my air conditioner in the background, it's because I don't have central air because I'm not bougie, as they say, and it's really hot outside, and my office is a comfortable 73 degrees here on the podcast. Now, Brayton, the last time we talked 4 months ago to the day, we didn't plan that one out. Well, not 4 months ago to the day, 4 months and 3 days, so I screwed it up already. February 17th, 2020 was the last time that we talked, and a lot has changed, but a lot has remained the same. And that's really why I say we don't have much of a podcast for you. I don't have a podcast written, but today it's going to just be, tell us how you really feel. Maybe that's the podcast title, episode 13. Tell us how you really feel. Because Brayton, for me, I am incredibly done with this franchise. Personally, I have been a fan since the playoff run. That's how I got into hockey when they were playing against the Hurricanes, which is kind of it'll come full circle later on in the podcast. But I have been a fan since then. I've written about the Sabres for well over a decade now for multiple different places. I didn't think of the word I was looking for. Publication. That's what I'm looking for. Multiple different publications. I still do it because I love writing. I don't love this hockey team. It's become essentially the Buffalo Sabres to me, and then I'll let you have your opening thoughts, Brayton. The Buffalo Sabres have become the definition of insanity. You know that old saying, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's the Buffalo Sabres, and that's how they've been for the last decade. And it's old. I'm done with it. I mean, I was pretty done with it, I should say, but what happened this week really kind of pushed me over the edge.
Yeah, it's definitely some really, really rough times. And, the expression that we always say, man, Sabres have hit rock bottom, can't get much worse than this. I feel like it's been said about a dozen times since the Tank years where everyone's just like, oh, man, I think the Sabres have hit rock bottom. Things can't get any worse after this, right? I think what happened Tuesday into Wednesday was as bad as it could ever get for the Sabres. Not only did you fire yet another general manager, but yet you're also cleaning house throughout the organization. Some moves, expected moves. Some moves, what are you doing type of moves. And it's just a combination of just the misery misery that this franchise has been experiencing ever since the term from Darcy Regier was thrown out that this might require suffering. And I think it's more than just suffering that this organization has gone through. I mean, I don't even know what word is the right word to describe it, but it's ugly, it's despicable, it is just the punching line for the entire National Hockey League and other media outlets across the entire country and into Canada too, where, the Sabres are a laughing joke of the NHL, and they are just the brunt of every joke. I mean, it's bad enough when Matt Larkin from the Hockey News joined Show for the Bulldog on Friday, and the first thing he says is, well, I regret to inform you guys that I too have also been fired by the Pagulas. I mean, it's just that kind of stuff that just makes this whole situation even worse. And, hopefully, and I'm going to say this again, and I'm sure I'll be wrong, but hopefully this is the rock bottom point for the Sabres, and this is the point where it can't get much worse, and it goes up from here. But, I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done.
I mean, we look at it, and it seems like every time, like you said, they hit rock bottom, Terry Pagula almost hydrofracks a little deeper, and they find another way to fall down a deeper hole to hit another rock bottom, honestly. I promised some friends I would try to not get too mad, but I'm just going to lay it out there, man. The ownership top down has no goddamn idea how to run a professional sports franchise. I know that they're doing a great job with the Bills, but newsflash, they got incredibly lucky with the Buffalo Bills. They backed their way into two very, very, very football smart people in Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, who then surrounded themselves with even smarter people or just as smart as they are, and they're making it work. They've been able to instill their ideals and their I completely forgot. I'm jumping ahead of my brain. The culture, that's the word I'm looking for. They were able to instill their culture, whereas with the Buffalo Sabres, every time they fire somebody, whether it be a GM or a head coach, they always stress the fact that they didn't have good communication. After a while, if you're dating somebody, Brayton, and for you and I both, this is way back. We got to blow the cobwebs off these memories. But if you're dating a girl and then you date another girl and then you date another girl, and all three of those girls break up with you for the same reason, maybe at one point in time, or you break up with them for the same reason, just to kind of keep it on the same page here. Don't you think maybe you have to do some introspective looking at yourself and say, you know what, maybe we're the problem. Maybe we need to figure out ourselves before we move forward. And with the Buffalo Sabres, that really seems to be the case, because at this point, I mean, maybe Kevin Adams comes in and he's a lockdown GM, great guy, smart guy, and he turns the tide around. But I'm sick of doing that. I'm at the point now where this team is a joke, absolute 100% joke. They're wasting the careers of Jack Eichel, of Sam Reinhart, of Rasmus Dahlin, among others. I don't know what the future holds for this franchise, because again, it seems as if the Pagulas are going to get their hands more involved in the Buffalo Sabres, and they don't have a clue. They're fans. They're glorified fans who have enough money, allegedly. They'll tell you otherwise, that they have more than enough money, but clearly we've heard that money's a little tight, and they seem to clearly have an idea of how they want to fix this. But again, it's been 10 years and they've gone nowhere. I mean, they've won no more than 40 games in a season. They've had multiple GMs, multiple head coaches, multiple assistant coaches. They've traded players away because they don't want to pay them. They've shied away from paying other players. They almost refused to pay. Apparently we heard Jason Botterill didn't want to give Jeff Skinner and Jack Eichel long-term contract extensions, which, that's nuts, but I digress. It just seems to me like, again, end of the day, they're just they're shitting in their hands and they're clapping, It's like, you're going nowhere and you're taking everyone along with you. And it's so frustrating, not only as a writer, but as a hockey fan in general. Because I have tried to break myself personally of this team. I can write about anything, no problem. So I can still be subjective and write about the Buffalo Sabres as a fan or not. Problem being, I always find myself attracted back to this team because this is the team that helped me fall in love with the game of hockey back when the last time that they were good, like I said, 10 plus years ago. So watching this team just circle the drain continually having no idea what it is that they want to do. And now they go out and hire a general manager who, I mean, again, Kevin Adams has credentials in hockey, and he won a Stanley Cup. He wasn't a very, very powerful scorer in his day in the National Hockey League, but a lot of people think very highly of him, and that's fantastic. But when you go out and you have an American Hockey League team led by Chris Taylor and Gord Dineen and Toby Peterson, and you fire them all after they had two of the best seasons the Amerks have had in a very long time, I don't understand what you're doing. And then we're hearing rumors that they might push Matt Ellis into a position in Rochester. Excuse me. They might give a guy like Adam Mayer a position. Like, why is this becoming the dude bro club where, hey, Kevin Adams has a job, so he's going to hire all of his friends, while you still see the incompetence with the Buffalo Sabres. We heard from John Vogel, who confirmed it, something that a few of us had heard rumblings about for the past few days, but thankfully John Vogel was able to confirm it, that in the Harbor Center, they forgot to work on the HVAC system. So the boards in both rinks are somewhat messed up, and they're going to cost a lot of money to fix. How are you that stupid? And it's across the board. Seriously. Like the Pagula Sports treats their employees like shit for the most part, from what I can gather. And then they expect to turn chicken shit into chicken salad. But again, end of the day, one of my favorite sayings, Brayton, don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining. We know you have no clue what you're doing. Stop trying to tell us that you know what you're doing. Stop trying to convince yourself and us that you know what you're doing. Go out, hire a president of hockey operations. Sorry that the last one didn't work out because he didn't want to trade Ryan Miller, but Tim Murray did. So now you're afraid to hire anybody back in that position again. Go hire someone who knows a thing or two about hockey and go from there. Clearly, we know Kim Pagula is a human press conference bingo board. She'll say all the things you need her to say, but none of it means anything. And then you've got Terry Pagula, who just looks like he's along for the ride at this point. I mean, the entire time, Brayton, and I'll let you have it after this, I'm sorry. My favorite part about the entire press conference wasn't the fact that they had no clue about what they were talking about. Every time the camera came on them, is this thing unmuted? Are we on right now? Like, bro, you're a professional sports owner and you don't know how to use a Zoom conference? Like, I'm just top to bottom, left to right. I can't wait for Jack Eichel to end up somewhere else, so at least I can follow him and watch him and be great somewhere else and do great things and win championships, because God only knows it's never going to happen in Buffalo at this point.
Wow, you really opened up Pandora's box there with just a bunch of emotions in that little rant, but nicely done. Nicely done.
Thank you.
But I mean, honestly, there are a lot of things that you just brought up that I know personally that a lot of fans feel. It's not just it's not just what you say. There are a bunch of other things that have been brought up over the course of the past few days that are things that certainly would drive any sports fan crazy, especially here in Buffalo, or that would really kind of perplex anybody that follows this team enough. But certainly it's an interesting situation too, where obviously with what you brought up with the Bills, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane got their act together. They have football level, and they get it. They got everything kind of tightly run, and the Pagulas can be hands off because, hey, we're good on that front with the Bills. Everything's fine that way, but yet they can't get it right with a hockey person or with the hockey team in general, period. And yet they still come out and they say that they don't believe in a position like a president of hockey operations, the person that Pat LaFontaine had. And yeah, sure, communication is a big issue. But, I mean, the question that I kind of have here with this whole thing is, what is your vision? What is your ideals other than just to win the Stanley Cup? There has to be more than just, we want to go win a Stanley Cup. Okay, how are you going to do that? What are your plans, your initiatives, your steps that you're taking to make that top goal your number one priority? Because it doesn't.
And didn't they, Brayton, I'm sorry to cut you off real quick, but didn't they say something about being like viable in Buffalo? Like, if you're running a sports franchise to be financially viable, get out. Like, sell the team and leave. Because we saw, remember back in the day with Tom Golisano when everything there were tight budgets and you could only spend a certain amount of money on certain players. I don't know if that microphone just picked up my burp. If it did, I'm sorry. That was disgusting. But
that's okay.
I don't understand. Like, we're sorry that your super yacht got canceled because of COVID and you were losing money because the oil industry is tanking because people are realizing we don't need oil. We don't need fossil fuels to survive. We can find other ways to do things in life. So maybe your bank account's a little smaller. There's a few less, I don't know, commas in it or whatever. I don't give a shit. But like you said, Brayton, there is no plan. They're just going to keep coming out and slapping a new coat of paint. But at the end of the day, you cannot polish a turd, man. Like, it doesn't matter how many coats of wax on it you put on it, how shiny it is. It's still a turd, man. Like, come on.
The thing that is just another layer to make this whole thing perplexing is that the term that they used was being leaner, and that was in terms of the hockey department. And like, okay, we don't have to have so many people. Like, we can have more people, like less people do more jobs, and we can consolidate all of that and make it a runnable operation. But the thing is that, you know, you can't have the GM doing 100,000 different things. You can't have certain other guys in the organization doing 100,000 different things when you probably could add one person that would kind of help clean up other areas that would make things much more efficient and actually make you look like a more competent hockey organization. Like a president of hockey operations, I think, is the one thing that this team desperately needs. You bring in a guy who's run a hockey organization from top to bottom in the past, whether, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, the only person I can think of right now is Brian Burke, but Brian Burke, I don't even know if he'd want to do something like this. But, you know, you bring in somebody like that who has kind of dipped their hands into every single aspect of running a hockey organization, and it seems like the Pulis just don't care to even think about bringing somebody in. I know that they had Pat LaFontaine in, and then when, you know, Tim Murray came in, Murray had a vision, and it wasn't the same as LaFontaine. Well, then, guess what? Why did you hire that guy in the first place? Pat LaFontaine was the guy that he was the guy that brought in Tim Murray. Tim Murray had different visions, and LaFontaine didn't agree with it, or however that goes. I'm not sure exactly how it goes, but next thing you know, a couple months later, Pat LaFontaine resigns as president of Hockey Ops, and there's no talk about it since then, and they don't even want to bring it up.
Didn't he have to sign an NDA or something like that?
Yeah, he had to sign a non-disclosure or some agreement where he pretty much didn't talk about anything that was going on. I mean, that's
talk about getting trumped, man.
Right. It's a situation where, you know, this organization kind of right now is an organization that has tires spinning, and it's been spinning for a while, and it keeps taking itself deeper and deeper and deeper into this thick mud. And it's like, okay, we need a tow truck. We need somebody to call to help us out. But there's no tow trucks anywhere in the area. There's no one or nothing that can come and help you out. And you're kind of throwing all of your hope into Ralph Kruger and Kevin Adams. And, you know, I liked what Kruger speaks of. I liked some of the things that he's brought up and how simplified he's made things for this hockey team, which you've seen a little bit of improvement on. But the team still finished 25th in the league. And the thought process is, and I don't know if this is actually going to happen, but this is something that we've talked a little bit about at GR this past week, where it's just like, okay, are you really going to bring back a lot of the pieces that were from last year and think anything's going to change? Do you really think bringing back Johan Larsson, Zemgus Girgensson, Vladimir Sobotka are going to, bringing them back is really going to make that much of a difference and having another year of continuity? No, because the team can't score in the same process, and let alone you don't have enough talent and depth in the organization. And yet,
I think a lot of the unrestricted free agents, I mean, especially now that Jason Botterill's gone, the only guy I had eyes on was Wayne Simmons because he loved him so much. But excuse me, I cannot see any unrestricted free agent. And really the only unrestricted free agents are offense because Matt Hunwick is the defensive unrestricted free agent, but he's got the career-ending neck problem. So that's that. No unrestricted free agents I can see re-signing here in Buffalo.
Yeah,
but again, we don't know what's like you said, Brayton. What's your plan? I mean, Jason Botterill spent more money than the Sabres we're supposed to. They have a cap overage now, and that's going to roll into next year, which is going to hurt the Buffalo Sabres. They've even though Kyle Oposo has had a great time in the bottom six, they still owe him 6 times 3. They still owe a year of Marcus Johansson at $4.5 million. I mean, at this point, they're going to have to go out and hit on very talented players for very cheap. And then they have to pay Sam Reinhart, which God only knows, is Sam Reinhart going to be the guy that gets traded? Because at this point, clearly, we've heard multiple times how much Ralph Kruger loves Rasmus Ristolainen, but at some point in time, the bottom's got to fall out because you've got a lot of high-paid players on the top end, and on the back end, if you're going to start, you're going to start playing guys on their entry-level contracts in Buffalo, or you're going to have to hit on some really cheap guys, and the Sabres have shown a penchant for not being able to do either. I mean, we saw what happened with Lawrence Pilot, where they called Lawrence Pilot's bluff. He said, "Fuck you, I'm out of here," and he left and goes over to Russia. I mean, we see, I don't know, man. Like they will sit there and they'll hit on a guy like Victor Olofsson, and then they'll pat themselves on the back while they watch a guy like Jimmy Vesey go out on the ice and shit on himself for 18 minutes a night, and then they'll call it a success. And that absolutely frustrates me. Like there is no plan, like you said, Brayton. And I think that might be the plan. They're just going to say, you know what? Who gives a damn? We're just going to do whatever we think. Like it blows my mind sitting back here as you're talking about how Kevin Adams is a first-time general manager. And congratulations to him. He licked all the boots and did everything he needed to do to get to where he was. Congratulations. You're now a National Hockey League general manager. You can check that box off on your resume. Great. But the problem that the Buffalo Sabres have had is all the general managers they bring in are brand new, fresh out of the box. So, hey, if you're having a problem with Tim Murray because he's loose lips sinks ships essentially, or if you got a problem with Jason Botterill because you don't like the direction that he wants to go in, okay, great. So what do? You literally go out and interview nobody and just hire your senior vice president of business operations, who was once a National Hockey League player who happened to win a Stanley Cup once. I'm sure that they get a hard on about that as well. I'm sure this guy's done it before. He knows how to do it. I'm surprised we haven't heard it yet, but why not go out? And again, I know guys like Ray Shero are garbage. Like Ray Shero, I do not want, but you know what? If you had told me either it's a guy like Ray Shero or a guy like Kevin Adams, I'm probably going to take the guy who's experienced and has actually kind of done this before. Yeah, and that's a big talking point as well. By the way, I did want to bring up, though, during your conversation with paying the overage and the bonuses and everything, luckily for the Sabres, they don't have to pay a guy like Dahlin those bonuses because obviously, the season got canceled and he didn't hit that mark, and a couple other guys too, so it's not as bad as it originally thought, but still, your point is very valid. Anyway, and I mean, some of the other decisions and, with the whole, still their whole point of, the goal is to win the Stanley Cup and some of the other comments that were made long ago, and reflecting on this week where they're cutting positions and especially guys like, Steve Braley and Randy Sexton who signed 2-year contract extensions mid-season, you still fire them. And then you also fire Chris Taylor and his coaching staff in Rochester, who were doing, I thought, a phenomenal job. But apparently, just because you develop one player that has made the NHL recently, that's a failure. Just that's another discussion that completely boggles my mind that I've had over the week. But just, you wonder why you're having so many money problems is because you're so brash on these decisions to fire these guys, and you just, I mean, I honestly understand, the Jason Botterill firing. I think you could have given him one more year. I mean, I know that you're putting the trust and moves in the organization into his hands this year, and maybe that wasn't the right move, but still, it's just like you're going to have to pay another GM, another, other people in your organization that don't even work for you anymore. Like, I mean, consistency, there's absolutely none. There's no plan. It's a frustrating aspect of this whole thing that's going on where, it is the definition of insanity. You try the same thing over and over, expecting different results, and it absolutely gets you nowhere. And I mean, I'll bring up the Rochester point just because I want to, and I'm going to right here. What about Chris Taylor's job and, the job that Gordon Dineen and Toby Peterson were doing that was firing worthy of? You're I think he just because he wasn't a Kevin Adams guy. I literally think because at some point in time, like this, what happened? I mean, what happened with everybody getting fired was shocking for sure. They got so trigger happy. They fired the director of hockey IT or whatever the hell his title was, and then realized they screwed up and had to hire him back the next day. Like they got trigger happy, fire crazy, right? And this needed to happen a long time ago. Like you bring in a new GM. He has the same people. If you can't develop players, what's the problem? Maybe you're not scouting the players properly. And I get like paring people down because with COVID, you're not going to be able to travel to hockey games. There's going to be no fans places. So video scouting is going to be important. So that's a nice excuse to have for the Pagulas and for the Sabres front office. But like just looking at the cap, we do this all the time, but just looking at the team right now, we hear about Carter Hutton. He's still owed $2,750,000 against the cap next season in his final year. But he has this crazy eye problem where he was having problems tracking the puck, which probably led to the fact that he was so lackluster last year. So what happens? Do you buy a guy like Carter Hutton out? Or if you get a compliance buyout because the cap's probably going to stay flat this year because of COVID, do you buy a guy like Kyle Oposo out? But don't forget though, because the Pagulas, despite the fact that they're going to tell you that their bank account is stuffed, they don't appear to have a lot of money. So that's probably not going to happen either. This is where it gets very frustrating because again, you're just going to keep cycling out the same people. They'll find someone to replace Johan Larsson, which I think is a mistake because I think Johan Larsson has turned out to be one of the better bottom six players in the league. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. They'll go out and they'll replace a guy like Johan Larsson with Rasmus Asplund because he's cheaper. Is he going to be better? Probably not, but he'll be cheaper. You go out and they'll probably keep a guy like Curtis Lazar. I like what he did last year, but he's cheaper. And that's what's going to keep happening, which is why I am mortified that Sam Reinhart's going to say, I want 6.5 by 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. And the Sabres are going to go, we're trading you. And I'm like absolutely past my I've lost all like end of my wits or whatever the hell I'm trying to say here. But you realize what they're going to do next year, Brayton. They're going to bring up a guy like Tage Thompson. They're going to push R2 Ruotsalainen in the lineup. They're going to push Casey Middlestat, Rasmus Asplund in the lineup. Guys like Will Borgen and what was I going to say? Casey Fitzgerald, guys like that, where they're going to say, look, you're young, you're talented. We think you're ready. Go play in Buffalo. And may it turn out well? Sure. But is it going to be bad? Probably. And that's what continues to happen here.
When development in Rochester was just about development, but yet you had nobody that was there to kind of oversee that development. You never really kind of allowed it to kind of blossom. What Chris Taylor and what Jason Botterill at least got right was that they were winning in Rochester. Yes, I know there's the argument of, well, most of your top scorers were AHL veteran players. But who gives a crap? You see the development of these young players in their path to becoming young, raw talent, going through the AHL depth, going through the AHL ranks, becoming one of their top players, and then within a year or two, they're ready for the NHL. I think that's what Chris Taylor exactly was doing. But no, I mean, only Victor Olofsson was able to get through, and he played partially in Sweden.
If I'm not mistaken, too, Brayton, wasn't Chris Taylor pumping young guys with major ice time towards the back end of the season because that he knew that was the point?
Absolutely. That like just the plan that they had and how they were utilizing their prospects was exactly the way that you want your development to go at every level of hockey. It doesn't matter if you're playing in juniors, it doesn't matter if you're playing in the AHL, or it doesn't even matter if you're playing in Sweden or whatever, and then you're ready to come over later on. This just the decision alone to fire the Amherst, even with Randy Sexton, for crying out loud. I thought Randy Sexton did just fine as an American Hockey League general manager. I don't know how he was as an assistant GM in the NHL level, but I mean, I'm not sure if that was his main priority. But the fact is that everything seemed to be coming together for Rochester just fine, and we were all focusing on, okay, so when, next year when it is, another year for Casey Middlestat in Rochester, what is his next development? Like, what's the next step of his development? Or for some of the other prospects coming, R2 Ruotsalainen, what's his level of development going to be? Or where's he going to start out, and how is he going to progress under Chris Taylor? you throw that out the whole freaking window now, and you have to start over. And why are you wanting to start over at this point with certain stuff like that? There's just absolutely no point, because you're going to throw your prospect development completely out the window again. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, here we go, another 3 years of being a top 10 pick in the draft, and you can talk about and hype up all these prospects and everything. But yet your development curve, your development plan for these prospects, you're starting over again. I think it was a huge mistake. I think that, again, it just goes to the point of what is your plan going forward? And yeah, maybe Kevin Adams has a plan, and he just can't get into it right now because you're just beginning to set the wheel in motion, and you're just starting to kind of get your feet wet as a general manager. You got to bring in other assets and scouts and an assistant general manager or two, and probably that whole group of the hockey operations department is going to be smaller now compared to when Jason Botterill came in, and that's fine, whatever. But how are you going to execute these plans? What is the steps that you're going to take, that you're going to execute to make this hockey team and hockey program that much better? And I just don't see that right now. And maybe we'll see it in the coming months here, but I mean, nothing about what we heard Tuesday and the rest of the week and what we were talking about shows any signs that they have a plan right now, other than, oh, we know Kevin Adams, we like him. The NHL, the advice they gave us with past hirings, they're crap. We're going to go with our own gut instinct, and we're bringing in a guy that has no experience. I mean, I'm maybe not as much on the ledge with this team as you are, Ryan, obviously, with the emotion you showed, and you've shown great emotion. I just right now am kind of in the mindset of, okay, I need a plan. I need something to be shown to me, to the fans, to the organization, to the players, that this is going in the right direction. And I don't even think the Pagulas even know what that right direction is right now. And that is really, really concerning.
I think the problem with them is they don't even know what the right direction is. They don't even know what direction they're currently going in. I'm worried that they're going to screw up Dylan Cousins, because we know how that's going to work out. They'll probably fail to go out and get a second line center, make someone like Marcus Johansson do it again, or push Dylan Cousins into the role and say, you're ready to go. So right, my last thing before we wrap the podcast up, because I have to go turn my sprinkler off in my yard before it becomes a swamp, is Brayton. I just want this franchise to be better. And I'm not saying like be better on the ice. I'm saying like as a whole. Pull your head out of your ass. If you don't know how to do something, get someone who does know how to do it. Because it's clear right now, you being the Pagulas have no idea what you're doing with this hockey franchise. I no longer want the goal to be win the Stanley Cup. Damn it, I want them to make the playoffs and play a playoff game. Like, I want them to have a winning record in a season. Like, that's my expectations are so low for this team.
Yeah, before you even get there, you just have to get to the point of being a relevant hockey operation and being a relevant hockey team again. Just because, you could hype the fact that things are going in the right direction, but until you can actually make that statement where it's like, okay, even if you miss the playoffs by a few points and you're right there in the mix, like, okay, that's I think to the point where you want to get first before. But I mean, if you could get to the playoffs next, that's great. But the team, the organization at this point right now, and especially after this week, it certainly seems like, and I think there's the same sentiment is shared, is that the incompetence that they show is just right off the charts. Just what are you doing with your entire organization? How are you operating things? And it just seems like everyone's just kind of shrugging their shoulders, just like, we're going along with the flow as it is.
And you know what's crazy too, Brayton, is that they clearly, everyone around the league knows that they don't know what they're doing, but they're still trying to convince us that they know.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating as well, among other things, obviously.
It is.
But Brayton, I appreciate you joining me today. It was nice to get some of that out and get it on the air.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, I hope that in the coming weeks that, maybe the plan starts to get in motion. We hear maybe about some names that could be coming in or being hired. I mean, the thing that I'm looking most forward to is seeing if they bring in some notable name that can maybe help Kevin Adams kind of go in that right direction of being the GM and getting his feet wet even more, and kind of how to operate as GM. Because, I mean, at this point, you have to have somebody like that. You can't just trust Kevin Adams to jump into the GM role and just be like, all right, we threw you into the volcano. Now get to work. And it's like, what? You just can't have that happen. You have to bring in the right people. You have to surround him with the best people. And, sure, the relationship between him and Kruger, hopefully that's going to be good. And hopefully the communication is another buzzword that's been used this whole time. The communication is much more on the same page. But, if this doesn't work out and we're still spinning the tires 2 or 3 years from now in the same situation, how much more is it going to be till we're, screaming from the top of our lungs? Just hire somebody that could be the president of hockey ops, who could hire a GM, who could then hire a coach that could have that communication down and be on point, and just let the ownership just be the owners, be the business side of things, and not have to worry about everything else. That's what they're worrying about with the Bills, and they're fine with that right now. Just like, I don't know.
My vote is for folding the franchise.
What?
I said, fuck it. My vote is fold the franchise.
Well, until that actually happens, I'll still be here. You can hear my thoughts, you can read my thoughts and everything like that. I just,
I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to be angrier about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm in the same boat as a lot of people. There's a lot of frustrations. There's a lot of what ifs, and
we just can't sit here and pretend like everything is okay because we know it's not.
I know. It isn't, but I hope that this is the right move. I think everyone's hoping that it's the right move, and the media, the team, the fans, just because we're all just sitting here hoping, like, okay, let's talk about playoff hockey. The Sabres in the playoffs. Start focusing on that again and their chances instead of every, January or February. Hey, who's the latest NHL draft guy that we can get on to talk about top prospects, or who are some of the NHL guys that we could talk about front office moves and everything like that, or head coaches. It's just getting really old really fast, and I think every one of us would like to be talking about something different. I
agree. Brayton is at BJ Wilson WGR. I am at Wolf BLTD on Twitter. Brayton, appreciate you joining me today.
Ryan, love you, buddy. I'll hopefully get the chance to see you again soon once this whole COVID thing is over, because I gotta not only see the lovely missus, I also gotta see Sammy, and I also gotta see the new puppy dog.
Yeah, the new Drax, man. He's great. Love you too, man. Tell your wife I say hello, and your animals as well. As always, this has been the Sabrecast. We are the Sabrecast.
And you are not.
We'll catch you sometime very soon. And as always, the Sabres suck.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.